we're really going to focus on the 75 countries that got banned and added to the list. And this plays into a much bigger picture with what the White House is doing, with what USCIS is doing, and how it plays into everything that we've seen in the past year. So it is not just a pure travel ban like what we have seen in the first administration. There's so much more that we want to talk about. The main and core idea of it is that this administration is saying these 75 countries, essentially too poor, how can we let them into the United States? Essentially, they are a public charge. They're going to revisit the public charge adjudication process of the consulates and to determine if they are going to be essentially taking U.S. benefits. And we are seeing countries like Egypt and even Russia that's a part of this. So we're going to dive into this. Now, the first thing we want to talk about is just a clear distinction between this and the 19 countries, right? And because the 19 country ban, that's a full benefit ban, which is much more extensive. You can't become a citizen, you can't get non-immigrant visas, you can't get a lot of things, right? If you're part of 19 countries. So it's super strict. And that applies corely with USCIS in the United States. But this 75 country ban is at the consulate level, meaning if you are applying for a non-immigrant visa, that's fine. If you get approved, you can still come to the US. Let's say you are a parent petitioning a child, or you are a U.S. citizen brother petitioning a sister, right? And they waited decades. They paid all the filing fees. You proved everything. It got approved by United States Immigration Services. And now finally, after 6 months, you go to the interview, you pass the interview, but because of this new pause, you don't get that immigrant visa in your passport, and you cannot fly into the U.S. and you cannot get your green card. You paid all the fees, you waited all the time, everything got approved, but now because of this new policy, it's determining, hey, let's re-adjudicate whether or not you're rich enough, whether or not you are wealthy enough, whether you will potentially become a public charge to the United States, where the United States taxpayers have to support you. Let's re-evaluate that. And then everything is paused. All immigrant visas. We're talking about business immigration visas. We're talking about family immigration visas. We're talking about all immigrant visas from these 75 countries. This is significant because just last year, in August, the White House came out with the policy of revamping the public charge rule. So I did a detailed video talking about it. I'm going to shorten it really quick right here. Essentially, in the past, they're just purely looking at your finances and you individually. Since last year, the new memo went out, essentially more than just looking at your income. They look at your education, they look at your family ties, they look at what other people do. So for example, if your children are using benefits, well, then the interpretation and the inference is, well, you must not be rich enough to even support your kids and they need benefits. Therefore, you are going to be a debt to U.S. That's what they're focusing on already. And now they're starting specifically with these 75 countries canceling all immigrant visas, whether it's family or it's business. You can get a non-immigrant visa, come to the United States, and then file for your immigrant adjustment of status here in the United States. So for example, let's say your parents petitioned you, you have a green card case pending with the consulate, now they're not issuing it. You even passed the interview for some reason. If you can get a non-immigrant visa, fly to the United States, you can file for adjustment of status and you can get a green card through that way. That's one method. You might be asking, if I already have an immigrant petition, how can I get a non-immigrant petition? I have immigrant intent. There are certain non-immigrant visas that allow for immigrant intent, generally 2 and maybe 3. The 2, the H-1B, right, H visas, and the L visas. If you're an international executive, then those 2, you can have immigrant intent. And so just because you have an I-130 approved, just because you have an I-140 approved with immigrant intent, you can still get those 2, come to the United States, and then file for adjustment. That's one method. And once you file for adjustment, you get the green card and you fulfill your green card status, then you can apply for citizenship, right? This 75 country ban does not ban citizenship. The 19 country ban bans citizenship because that's a benefit. But 75 country is purely just immigration and just basically focus on the public charge, whether or not you're wealthy enough. Now, you can always apply for a national interest exception. You can make good arguments. And in my experience, consulates will adjudicate those as well. They're going to issue new memos to be more clear about it. But, a long about way is to use the visa to come into the United States. If you already have a visa, that's still valid. The 75 country ban is not a travel ban, so you could still potentially come to the US. And then once you come in, then later on, you could potentially adjust status. So that's one other method. So it does not apply to non-immigrant visas, B1, B2 tourist visas, F1 international student visas, L1, O1, all the other non-immigrant visas. It does not apply to people in the United States transferring, changing, adjusting status to get a green card. And it doesn't apply to dual nationals, right? So if you are from the 75 country, but you are also a French national, you could still use your French national to go to the French embassy and get a visa, obviously, right? So that it's much more expansive. K1's already taking an extraordinary amount of time. And in my experience, having seen a lot of the K1s, K1, they categorize a lot of times it's the immigrant visa unit that is adjudicating K1s. So this is a immigrant visa ban. So I feel like they're going to adjudicate it. Now, if they do issue it, great, right? That will be wonderful. You come in as a non-immigrant, then you can file for adjustment of status. This 75 country ban won't stop you from filing for adjustment status. Now, let's say the consulates do allow the K1 visas to go through the non-immigrant channel to get the non-immigrant visa to come to the United States. They might still make you pay the 15,000 bond, right? So that came out also last year where, if you're going to come in and you promise that you're going to leave the United States, you need to pay a 15,000 bond. But that also doesn't quite make sense in the K1 category because the K1 category, you're coming in as a fiance to get married and you're not planning on leaving. So it doesn't make sense for you to pay that 15,000. So we definitely need more guidance on that. But if you're asking me personally, my bet is the K1 will be stopped.